Could DOGE find the secret UFO crash retrieval program?
Elon Musk has spectacularly confirmed that the Department of Education no longer exists. And mere hours after Trump ordered Elon Musk to look into the department, action was taken.
I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that.
What if the biggest secret in human history, the recovery and study of non-human technology, i.e. craft, is being hidden in plain sight, buried under billions of dollars of taxpayer funds, all funneled through black budgets? And what if a particular government watchdog agency, such as DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, stumbled upon all those billions and billions of dollars? Could they accidentally blow the cover on the actual UAP crash retrieval program? That's what we'll look at today on Lehto Files. Thanks for being here. Chris Lehto, welcome to Lehto Files. So DOGE is the controversial program created by Trump, led by Elon Musk, and its charter is to track and end government corruption and wasteful spending. It's already exposed major financial mishandling by agencies such as USAID.
For 8 years, I heard it for 12 years, I heard it every single day. Who needs to pay more in taxes? Is it you? Is it you? Who needs to pay more in taxes? We need more money. Who needs to pony up more? That was the issue. But that's not the issue today. We have a new president. You know what the issue is today? What the hell happened to all the money? What the hell happened to all the money? And that's what Mr. Musk is finding out. How can you look the American people in the eye and support this kind of waste?
You've heard of many millions of dollars funded for programs that obviously shouldn't have been there, like transgender operas. There's Sesame Street in Iraq, many other just crazy programs where just, I think if you're like me, you couldn't believe that we were actually funding these programs, and chances are that's not even where the money was going. It was probably funneled to something else. But DOGE is just getting started, right? This is USAID. What happens when they look at the DOD, which is never passed an audit, that we'll look at today? Could they actually uncover something like a UAP crash retrieval fund, some sort of funneled billions of dollars going into secret programs that have zero government oversight?
We sent $1.3 billion in checks to dead people. Those aren't my numbers. Those numbers come from the Office of Management and Budget. That's just 1 year. Not only is the federal government sending checks to dead people, those checks are being cashed. Now, I have heard, Mr. President, of dead people voting, but cashing the checks? You don't have to be God's perfect idiot to realize that there's fraud happening.
So could DOGE actually expose the biggest government cover-up in history? So I've talked a lot about the black budget. What is the black budget? We consider the black budget as this necessary part of national security, but is it necessarily? It should at least have government oversight. But the black budget at its core funds secret classified programs, right? Programs that you don't want to highlight, such as the B-2 stealth bomber. That was a unacknowledged special access program, right? So was the SR-71, another unacknowledged program, and the Nighthawk, right? The F-117, flying stealth cockroach. It was actually not a fighter, by the way. It was only a bomber. It carried 2 internal bombs and had no radar warning receiver, so it's not a fighter. The true first stealth fighter was the F-22, which is, still just an amazing aircraft. I fought it many times in training up in Alaska. So these programs, in order to keep them super secret off the radar of our enemies, are kept mostly exempt from congressional oversight, right? The key term there is mostly. They should still be under congressional oversight, which is the big issue. But as we'll look, historically, black budgets have greatly ballooned in recent history, right? They're gone to historic levels now, and they've increased in both size and secrecy. So how much is actually hidden inside the black budget? So in 1981, the black budget was $5.5 billion. That was under Reagan. And then by 1987, it had surged to $22 billion, a 300% increase in 6 years. Then in 2007, the black budget had ballooned again to $30.1 billion. But don't worry, that's really nothing compared to 2013, the leaks, right? Again, this is not from congressional oversight. This is actually leaks revealed a staggering $75.6 billion. So $52.6 billion was allocated to national intelligence programs, and then $23 billion went to military intelligence programs, $75.6 billion, and that was from leaks in 2013. Today, we don't even know really, but estimates suggest the black budget is between $50 to $100 billion. Each year, that makes up around 7% of the total U.S. military budget of around $824 billion. And that was in 2024. This is just an insane percentage over time, right? So from 1981 to now, if you assume the worst case, $100 billion, that means it has increased. The black budgets have increased 1,800%. 1,800% since 1981. Consider that. And now it's 7% of the budget. So if it's $100 billion for the black budgets, people scoff at the idea that Stephen Greer says he was offered $1 billion to run a program. Well, if they have $100 billion, that's actually not that much at all, right? 1% of the black budget, total budget, right? Effectively, not much at all. So how do these programs stay hidden? So for the most part, black budget spending is allocated under vague labels like advanced aerospace systems, classified special access projects, and what we've heard recently, like Immaculate Constellation, unacknowledged special access programs, right? The F-117, the B-2 Spirit, SR-71, these were all unacknowledged special access programs, or USAPs. So these line items disguise what could be secretive UFO retrieval programs, exactly what Jake Barber has been saying. Jake Barber recently went public as a first-hand whistleblower. As a helicopter pilot in covert programs, he did crash retrieval and UAP retrieval, he says, for 10 years, so for many years with the team. He was a former U.S. Air Force veteran. He was an aircraft mechanic, actually, but on the side, when he was in combat controller training program, he was approached by two men who convinced him to actually quit the program and go and become an aircraft mechanic. So it's basically straight out of the movies, being a covert operator, right?
Something important to understand is that the legitimacy is the best cover. This is something we say all the time. So if I'm going to put my public face or my structured face or my three-dimensional identity out there, it's got to be a legitimate work, and I spend most of my time doing that. So I specialize in security and transportation, mostly in aeronautical operations, and even more specifically, helicopters. I'm basically a helicopter operations expert and security expert. So I stood up and got involved with helicopter operating companies and held many contracts with the DOD, Department of Interior, State Department, and other local agencies as well. And through that work, we basically, although the majority of our time was spent doing the day-to-day work and keeping that business up and going, our real purpose was to make ourselves available for the call, let's say, or the calls that would come in. And we would be put to work on missions for the program.
This way he was never on the books, right? This is how they hide it, because if you're not on the books, then the adversaries can't find you, right? And legitimacy is the best cover, so he became an aircraft mechanic and went to a bunch of clubs, like shooting club, combat club, pilot club, parachute club, underwater rebreather diving club. And that's what he said, how it works. He was a defense contractor retrieving advanced aerospace vehicles, and among them, he retrieved UAP craft, he said, as a security and transportation expert. He describes an egg-shaped metallic SUV-sized craft 20 feet long that he retrieved, and he said there was no propulsion system on it. And that's when he really realized he was dealing with non-human intelligence. He was later told by high-ranking officials the object was non-human in origin, and later confirmed by members of the UAP task force. We saw Jay Stratton in his recent Age of Disclosure trailer saying that he has seen non-human bodies and craft with his own eyes. So where was all this happening? The main range, according to Jake, was in the Mojave Desert. I think that's R-2508 restricted airspace out in California. So that's a major military operations area in California's Mojave Desert. It contains Edwards Air Force Base, famous test base, as well as China Lake. They do weapons testing there, and Area 51 adjacent testing grounds, right? So it's not in Area 51, but it's right next to Area 51, right? So historically, this area has been used for secretive experimental aircraft and black projects. If a UFO crash retrieval program existed, this would be one of its primary testing locations. I hear it a lot too. How could the DOD or the government hide this for so many decades, right? How is it possible that they could avoid scrutiny for that long? And for one thing, the Department of Defense cannot pass an audit. So the DOD has failed every single audit since audits began in 2018. In the most recent audit, it couldn't account for 63% of its $3.8 trillion in assets. It didn't know where 63% of those assets were. Where is the missing money going? In every job I've ever been in the military, I was in the Air Force for 20 years. I was F-16 pilot for 18 of those years. Every job I was ever in, including being a commander of a detachment, we had to account for every single dollar. If it was less than $20, you didn't have to account for it. But every single $20, we had to account for it. So thousands of dollars all the way up to millions of dollars. Every cent, $20 cents, was accounted for, like meticulously. So the idea that we don't know where the money is going is just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, the people on the front lines know exactly where the money is going because we're required in a painstaking, terrible, bureaucratic way to document where all the money is actually going. So the fact they can't account for 63% of it is just completely ridiculous, right? Completely ridiculous. So this is how you hide $100 billion easily, right? This is how you hide trillions of dollars. Could it be funding UFO programs? Without a doubt. You have $100 billion that we don't even know about, right? And that's of the black programs. How about the 63% that they can't even account for? That's not even in the black programs, right? The other way it can be kept secret is there's no oversight. So the senators are actually threatened. Senator Joni Ernst asked USAID for budget transparency and was threatened when she tried to look into their books. If this happens to senators investigating basic foreign aid spending, what happens when a lawmaker asks about UAP funding? According to whistleblowers, Jake Barber said people have been killed to keep this secret. So what do you think is going to happen if you start asking about funding for UAP funding, if USAID is willing to threaten senators and congresspeople? Jake Barber testified before the Senate Armed Service Committee, and he actually went there for help. He said in his last two interviews, he went to the Senate Armed Service Committee for help and was shocked actually when they asked him for help, security help to keep them safe, the actual lawmakers. Can you believe that? It's just insane. So who would be running a UFO crash retrieval program? Jake Barber said it is not this well-organized group of people, right? It's a compartmentalized, disparate group. Nobody really knows the whole picture, and they're operating kind of in the dark, and this is how it can work. So the US government doesn't conduct these operations itself, right? Then it's foilable. If it's on the books, it can easily be found. So it outsources them to private defense contractors. The largest defense contractors with black budget contracts are Lockheed Martin, right? They developed the F-117 Nighthawk, SR-71 Blackbird under Black Projects. They've also been long rumored to house exotic materials at the Lockheed Skunk Works facility. Number 2, you have Northrop Grumman. They created the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber and rumored to work on next-gen propulsion tech. Raytheon Technologies, involved in classified sensor and radar technology. They've been talking about capturing these craft with high-power microwave weapons, right? So that could easily be tracked to Raytheon. And finally, you have Boeing. Any one of those companies could be involved. Jake Barber said, well, if you name 1 and 2, you would both be right. And so that would be Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman.
Can you say anything about the companies that you worked for in the context of these UFO crash retrievals?
Look, man, if you took 2 guesses, you'd get both of them right on the first try.
There you go.
Okay.
So I think those are probably the corporations you should be looking into. Another key point is that these large corporations are not a well-organized organization, right? They are also disparate groups of companies. I actually was in charge of a contract in Phoenix. I was in charge of a multi-million-dollar simulator contract run by Lockheed Aero. What was amazing to me is that Lockheed Aero is not Lockheed Martin, right? The parent company is Lockheed Martin. But Lockheed Aero, we could not get access to the simulator code for the simulators, right, for the F-16s, even though we gave Lockheed Martin the actual simulator code. Lockheed Aero could not get that code from Lockheed Martin. Why? Because Lockheed Martin could not share the code with another competing company. Isn't that amazing? Lockheed Aero could not get the codes, could not get the actual sim code that we gave to Lockheed Martin because of some BS bureaucratic law, and they're actually different companies. So that's how you keep it secret. You can go ask Lockheed Martin, the main corporation, everything you want. They actually don't know, right? They don't have access to all their little companies inside of them. That's how they keep it compartmentalized. So they just have another little company called probably something random like Bricklayers or something. Lockheed Bricklayers. Probably doesn't even have Lockheed in the name. Just be like Moderate Space System. They probably doesn't even have a space in it. It's going to be the most boring name, but it's going to be a conglomerate. So I would just look under the main corporation and look for the most boring sounding name and go for that and look for the funding. So how do they hide the funding? So funds are moved through shell companies, subcontractors, and all held secure through non-disclosure agreements, right? Through those subcontractors.
We stood up and got involved with helicopter operating companies and held many contracts with the DOD, Department of Interior, State Department, and other local agencies as well. And through that work, we basically, although the majority of our time was spent doing the day-to-day work and keeping that business up and going, our real purpose was to make ourselves available for the call, let's say, or the calls that would come in. And we would be put to work on missions for the program.
So all these programs are structured in a way that even Congress doesn't have full access, right? Even the main company doesn't have full access. You can ask them whatever you want, they won't know. And that's why they don't want to brief the higher ups. No one wants to brief the president, or no one wants to brief the chief of the joint staff, right? Because then he knows. And now if you ask him and he knows, he's held in contempt. But if he doesn't know, he's telling the truth, right? That's why we have no evidence of non-human intelligence. We don't, right? But there are some groups, obviously, that could have it. So could the Department of Government Efficiency accidentally expose this whole UAP crash retrieval program? So DOGE is already investigating financial mismanagement across multiple agencies. And this is what we're primarily talking about here. Last year, Congress passed a law that any funds for UAPs that have not been disclosed to Congress, any programs that haven't been disclosed to Congress, those funds are illegal. So if it's not disclosed to Congress members, these funds are definitely illegal. If DOGE stumbles across them, they will find them as illegal funds. If it audits certain Pentagon contracts or intelligence expenditures, it could find suspicious money trails leading to private aerospace companies, like I talked about, even just conglomerates, right? Parts of already larger corporations. It could expose budget discrepancies in classified UAP-related projects, and it could accidentally bring public attention to secret UFO crash retrieval operations. How amazing would that be? DOGE has already found suspicious activity. It discovered billions in unaccounted spending in federal aid programs, already billions. It's been blocked from accessing Treasury Department materials related to missing money. Think about that. How popular will this be with voters, right? When we can't get any accountability for our taxpayer funds. And when finally we're going to actually get some accountability, it's blocked by the Treasury. How long will that last, do you think? DOGE is also being stonewalled in very similar ways to how Congress is blocked from UAP budget oversight. Basically, they just say, we don't have that information. You can't get access to the database. It's classified. It's too secret, right?
Well, there's some things I've seen proof of that I can't discuss, and I've urged the White House to disclose these things. You know, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars researching something, and then you have one group telling us they don't exist, and I have the best pilots in the world telling me, Tim, this thing was 14 feet from my canopy, and he did this. And I've seen things that I wish the public could see. There's just a lot of unknowns. And again, they tell us they don't exist, but then they issue redacted reports, and they're still studying. Almost every one of our alphabet agencies has that. We had testimony that said they have a recovery unit. Now, what are they recovering? I'd like to know. It's our tax dollars. We have a right to know. And when government thinks that we can't handle what's going on out there, that's when government's gotten a little too big, and we need to cut their wings off. And right now they're spending, our Pentagon has got all this dark money. You have the alphabet agencies studying these things. One group will tell us they exist, the other one doesn't. I just think it's time that we have total disclosure. And you all in the press ought to be for transparency and disclosure. I don't see a problem with that.
This is the exact same thing they say to the Congresspeople who are going to try and figure out, where are all the funds going? What is supporting the UAP crash retrieval program that so many whistleblowers have come forward to them, right? Maybe not to us, but Jake Barber had talked to the Senate Armed Services Committee over a year and a half ago. He and other members, I assume, of his team had already come out and spoken about this. So they've known about it for a long time. What about when the public finds out about it? How angry do you think the public is going to get? So if DOGE turns its attention to the Pentagon, which it surely will, right? It needs to. I mean, they cannot pass an audit. 63% of $3.8 trillion, that is a lot of money. That's $2.3 trillion in assets that as taxpayers we paid for, right? They cannot account for it. Think about that. A government cannot account for it. And that's not black budgets. If black budget's only 7%, why can you not find $2.3 trillion, man? That's so much money. It's just unbelievable. So they have to point to that. Where's the $2.3 trillion? All right, so let's go through a recap. So the black budget has increased by 1,800% since 1981, reaching $100 billion annually. That's estimated, right? $50 to $100 billion. We don't even know. It could be more than that. The DoD has failed every single audit since audits came out in 2018 and cannot account for 63% of its 3.8 trillion assets. Do you think DOGE is going to look at this? Jake Barber's testimony suggests UAP retrievals are real. If you haven't watched Jake Barber's testimony, you should. He seems extremely legitimate. And he comes out and says, this is how it's done. It's done through defense contractors. Decompartmentalized. Congressional oversight is obviously blocked. It's been completely blocked at every step of the way. Jared Moskowitz, Anna Paulina Luna, Tim Burchett, they've been complaining about this all the time, at least every week. They're complaining that they're stonewalled for sure. So the same thing is happening. And some senators, like Joni Ernst, have received threats for asking about finances, right? Again, how popular do you think this is going to be with the common taxpayer and voter? So I think DOGE has a real chance of exposing these programs if they don't get shut down first. If you think government agencies like DOGE should be investigating where our money is going, then let me know in the comments. And do you think UAP crash retrievals are real? Could DOGE find proof? Subscribe to get more updates in the future. Follow the payment flows is the new saying, and uncover the truth. If you want to check out this members-only video, then join the squadron at YouTube memberships. And I'm also posting every week exclusive behind-the-scenes content on my Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/Chris Lehto to support, get cool merch, and some exclusive content. Continue the discussion at Lehto Files Discord. And finally, check out our sister channel, UAP Society Weekly News Show. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.